Asinivusele maswahla amahle sinivusele benkosi lenhlelo omuhla kusihlwa ke ehlelweni Embili Kanye Kanye ibito lami nginJohn wakaPhirezi Sibongo kwintokodo malanga lamahle ukuthi ke besinganivusela ke emakhaya kulobusuku balomuhla sitawudeka ke indzaba dekwelekelela live ukuthi ke liqhubekele ke Embili esigabeni ke sekuthi libekiswe ke noma lifananiswe ke namave lasathuthukile phecelezi first world country ngisebenzisa igama leligama ngithi sibeki libekise nasifuna ukubekisa sifuna kuba ngilo livekele sesigabeni semave ke lathuthukile i-first world country ngiko kehlelo lethu luthi ke Embili Kanye Kanye lungena ngalesibili ngensimbi yemfica ke kusihlwa luphindwe ke ngakusasa ngalesithathu ngensimbi ke yelishumi ke ekseni lukhona ke lungena ke ngelisonto ngensimbi ke yesithupha kude ke kube imizuzu ke leshuma ngingakashaya ke insimbi yesikhombisa kusihlwa kulohlelo lo maswahla amahle lwalo Sunday lisuka kuyo kunento lengiyifunzile futhi ke lengibona ukuthi ngiyafuna kuyicathathela emaswati lenza bayalo ukuthi leti nombolo asingabuki nadi nombolo lesiniketwa idona indvuna yelitiko letempilo ukuthi unamuhla kuthiwa ke kuna 56 cases kuna 82 cases dinombolo letinye lesitibonile letimcoka lekufuna sihloniphe nginati dinombolo letentiwa ngilama epidemiologist lethiwa ekhathe ke dinombolo debantu labasolakala ukuthi banawo lomkhuhlane weCovid-19 njengebantu ke naba lebabitwa ngema high risk contacts bantu labathinzene nebantu labanaleligciwane layo ke iCovid-19 dinombolo leti khona nje lokusikhuluma tijakela phake kubo 2400 to 2500 dinombolo debantu labanalomkhuhlane noma ke labanaleti impawu nekuthi basolakala kamadima lokuthi labantu laba banawo ke emathuba ukuthi bangawuhambisa ke lo mkhuhlane weCovid-19 ngabuta la ekutheni bakuphi labantu labangu 2450 labana letimpawu noma ke labasolakala ukuthi bathinzena nalabantu abanalo mkhuhlane kwathiwa cha bakhona nje lamkhathisini wethu kude lapho babekwe khona sekuyasitshela ke lokho maswahla amahle ukuthi vele kuyafuna ukuthi sihloniphe kufaka lama mask sigezele itandla nale social distancing siyende and sibuke nalama mask ethu ukuthi siwabeka kuphi ngoba ngiyasola lama surfaces lawa kukhona ke sandla lekasifaka kulawa lo hlelo lomkhuluma ngalo lolu ningalibukela ke ngalesihlanu ngensimbi yelishumi nakunye ke ekseni lapho khona ke besitichaza sithi interpreter noma sithi uhumusha ledombolo ukuthi ngitiphi netinkundla leti affected kakhulu kuleli vela kangwane sabuka ke bomanzini north bomanzini south bokwaluseni bombabane east and west bothokotweni lekungiletinye kade leto tinkundla leti ngathi ke thethenze kakhulu ke kulowo mkhuhlane lo kuyasibuyisa ke namuhla ke ehlelweni ukuthi ke sikhulumise ke lesithombe lesakhiwa ngileti nombolo nalokho lokubangwa ngilomkhuhlane sifuna ukukhulumisa lokuthi uMaswati asina ukhanza yini bantu kumbe sebaphethwe bo hypertension sebaphethwe ngilokwa nalokho ikakhulu kade bantwana solo kwetikolo batigcine lokwa ngenyanga yendlovu lenkulu ke mayicala uyadibuta ke umuntu ukuthi ngabe kubaphatha njani edingqondweni nasetinhlitiyweni kungendi lutho kubaphatha njani banikati bemabhizinisi kubaphatha njani ke labakhulumende noma ke labasebuholini kubona lesimo singabi nginako lebebafise lokuthi sibe ngiko ngidawubekisa ngelakithi nje belicetha kwakha ke umgubudla lo wathiwa ukuthi ke 5-year strategic roadmap siseta uphumelela into so strategic roadmap and what mental problems are these issues causing to our leaders, to our stakeholders generally. We are going to be talking about those issues here today. We have a mental health nurse in the studio with us today. Kodwa ke ngidabavusela ke ngibethule ke ngamunye emaswatini. Idlamini kunene angubingelele Nkosi ngikupheke nelithuba lekuvusela emaswati.
Asibonge Johnny siyavusela emaswatini siyajabula kuba khona namuhla
siphilile Nkosi sitawuthi nje kungumusa kaNkulunkulu kuqhubeka sibe khona akusiko kuhlakanipha kwethu leti khathi letikito leti siyabona tithatha abantu lebesicabanga ukuthi sidababona nabo kusasa sibonga nje kakhulu sinaye ke natsatse wethu la ngofikile Zwane lo mental health nurse ngicela ukuvusela tsatse wethu ngikupheke lithuba lekuvusela emaswati.
Ngiyakuvusela kakhulu mbukeli ekhaya losibukela kuleli hlelo nguvusele nawe John kuleli hlelo siyabonga kuba khona lo hlelo kanye
siyabonga kakhulu tsatse wethu lo munye ke lesitaphinza ke sibe naye emaswati lamahle la ngekusebenzisa ke ubuchwephesha lesinabo sitawu connect noma ke sitawuxhumana ke lana Dr. John Dibane lo lapha ke eNingizimu Africa Centurion lo tabe ke ayingcenye yenkulumo ke lesitabe ke siyibambile la lo ehlelweni ke lomuhla simfuna kakhulu ke ukuthi atosincwadzisa ekuthene ke nasi lesimo sesikhona senta njani ke sibanika ekade bemabhizinisi siba hole etinhlangothini letahlukahlukene siba nivana nokuthi ke silive lesimo lesikiso kufuna ke sisibuke njani yini lekufuna ukuthi sitilungiselele kona noma kumbe si behave njani as a means of trying to rise above konke lokubonga ngomkhuhlane both from a health issue, from a social issue, and from an economic issue. Dr. Tibane is going to join us on the show via Zoom at 9:15. Dlamini ngene sengendlalele ke indzaba la ngifuna nje ukuthi sishakutele Nkosi ngendlala simo lesikhona lesipresentwa ngomkhuhlane ngibekisa nangethi inombolo lesitfolile bantfu lekuthiwa ke bangema high risk contacts labana lomkhuhlane bala ku 2500 njengoba ke sikhuluma kubita lokuthi lesimo lesisibuke ngendlela lethi kuyasetfusa nekuthi kumbe ku create a bleak outlook mangasebenzisa item lesilumbi lokuthi uthi lesimo sitawugcina sibuyeleni kuloko ngiso sifuna ukukhulumisa indzaba ngaphasi kwesihloko lesithi mental resilience in during a crisis which is being presented by COVID-19. Why is this topic necessary here today?
Thank you so much, John. This is a necessity. Let's talk ngako namuhla ngoba nawukhumbula sifike la 3 months ago kwakung April. Sifikiswa ukuthi se create a situation lesingakayidayeli. Sesiphe ligama ke sathi i new normal. Uma ke sikhuluma nge new normal sikhuluma ngendlela lensha yekuphila ngoba sekushintshe lokhu besiphila ngako. Na ungenela ke John i new normal uye uyilungiselele. Le asikayilungiselele sesithi ke asisale sigibela staff usilungise sesisetu angibekise ukuthi ngisho ngani umuntu longakwadi kushayela nakaniketwa imoto loyo muntu loyo angahlayila imade kumele afundziswe kuyishayela so simpreparation i new normal lo muntu ahamba ngetinyawo so ushayela imoto umuntu lo ocala ku nawuthatha ude kumfati noma ushada kuba nanako lokuthiwa i premarital counseling lokusho ukuthi ungakathathi ilungiselelwa ukuthi nasawuthethe utawuphila kanjani noma uyosebenza na uqala emsebenzini kuba neorientation ukuthi utawuphila kanjani la so ke nathi la kulesibhekene nako i new normal sizama kulungiselelana asisho ukuthi siyati kodwa sithi nakunelishintsho asilungiselele ukuthi sitawuphila kanjani kulolu shintsho.
Ngiyabonga Nkosi le ndlela lobekisa ngakhona kuyasinikeda lesithombe sokuthi lokhu lesikuyonyalo asingakufananisi nanakule bekukhona itolo senda ngathi kuyafanana manje ke tsatsa wethu lana ngifuna sizame ku lungisa indzaba yana item lelisetshenziswako la lelithi new normal kanti sifuna ukukhulumisa indzaba ye mental resilience during a crisis utawungazi ukuthi manje why do we even define this as a crisis mangabe sithi lokhu yi new normal because lapha you can underline the word normal ukuthi lenvo i normal manje nje kulokuthi yisha do we even have to worry about the new normal that we are talking about because noma kufanele sik accept angathi lokuthi ubona kanjani wena as a mental health expert.
Ngiyabonga John. Ku ile new normal sifanele sisiphile nayo kuba worried ku normal but lo lokuba kabi lekhathi soba over worried because awubusakhona ukuthatha ama decisions la takusida so kumcuka lokuthi usinabo now worried ubone ukuthi utawudila kanjani nale worriness yakho lekuphethe ingaze kwengama.
Ngiyabona info lesifuna ukuyikhulumisa namuhla afikile ngilenza banje njengoba sisho lokuthi mental resilience during a crisis sifuna kusita emaswati lokuthi aqine engcondveni esikhathini lapho khona tinvo tibonakala ngazothi atihlangana noma kusito leti lesitijwayele kukhona insimo lesingabangwa ngulesimo lesikiko lesithikabeta ingcondvo nekuthi mangabe besingayidefine kumbe leso simo leso assuming it is stress or depression how would you define the two?
Kule mental health le resilience mental health lesikubukile ngiloko ukuthi sitawukwenza kule COVID-19 lesimo lesibhekane naso senge i-economy siphinze ibuye lokho sitasihlupha ngilokuthi nase sesilimete lengcondvo yethu asinawukhona ukuphinze sibuyele esimeni lesikahle singcondvo yephila so sithi ke nangabe uva ukuthi uphethwe stress kunjengoba ngisho ukuthi kunormal ukuphathwa stress kodwa nase sibona singathi sesiya kwengama zama ukuthi ufole indlela yokuthi sita ungazofika lapho khona so ungenela bo depression khona so ungasakwadi ukuthi sekufuna sala uphila ngemaphilisi uze kusuchubeke uphile empilweni yakho sithi asikumanage kahle lokuphila stress lesikhathi ubathe uyabuka empilweni bokuthi ubuke emuva ukuthi ngadisita ngani ungaboni ukuthi ungadisita ngani ngiko silapho sithi kena dibuke ukuthi ngubani ongazama ukukhulumisana naye kuze ugcine uphilile.
Angathi lokuthi mina nje ngifuna ukubekisa ngami angathi noma ngeke ngaba ne stress noma ngeke ngaba bede stress ngoba phela mawunale stress angathi uthi ubona ngani ukuthi yathi nyalo ngiphethwe stress kumbe ikakhulu kade ngalamadolobheni lapho khona ngathi sinale covid ishaya kakhulu khona sitawutitshela ukuthi sesikwedayele kuba netiphithiphithi noma kumbe netimo letibucayi vele yini le singabekisa ngayo le khombisa lokuthi lo mkhuhlane lona ungababangela abantu stress kuze ukuthi batobona ukuthi yathi stress phela lesi singaboni abantu bathi bamile bayacoca kuwe munye nje athilike phansi bathi bodokotela noma ke bofikile hayi stress ke lebese simphethe lo muntu lo kodwa yena bekangaboni ngenteka nguye lo Pires lesikhuluma ngaye namhla lokunhleti nayo utawuthi uyakhuluma nje nibone sekungasahambi kahle emoyeni ungabona ngani lokuthi ngiphethwe stress and kuhambelana nale situation lesikiyo
ngesikhathi une stress Johnny ingqondo yakho iyahukeka ihukwe ngileti imfo letendekayo mhlambe ingahukeka ukuthi ngahle ngibanjwe ngilokugula ngahle sihlobo sami noma makwami abanjwe ngilokugula noma ngibani lokhona noma ngahle kusina sengigula bese sengiyafa ube nalama thoughts ukuthi what is going to happen to you
ema thoughts la ngengcinga vela usebenzisa igama lehuka lokuthi uthi lento iyakubamba ihambe nawe la ukhona khona noma ulele noma uwenda
noma uyadlala noma wenda ini so uhukekile so kumcwalo ukuthi ungahukeka urealize ukuthi wathi sengihukekile kuze kustop khona lokutisida uthi lama thoughts angahukeka ke kuphinze uhukeke nalama emotions akho ukhanze ukuthi sota usaba kakhulu nesikhathi sosaba kakhulu sota undatimvo lesiste tibheke eceleni ngoba lokuhukeka kwalama thoughts nalama feelings akho wenda ukuthi bese uchange behavior because so naloko saba lokukhulu it's either uyabaleka noma uyalo so ngiko sesitawukhanza ukuthi sekutaba nabo violence emakhaya because uzama ukuthi ubalekele nanke ema thoughts nalanga ema feelings lasisekakhukile
yeah uthi ngale singisi lento iyahuka nje basebenzisa igama leSiswati kube manje ethiwa yanamathela ngabe kumbe siyathi into bayithiwa ihukile iba madima kakhulu yini into kumbe letingendiwa ngumuntu lokuthi kumbe agcine abe soyadikhipha nje ubekisa ngemaphilisi angathi noma kumbe vele kuba isolution yini lokuthi nayi lento seyingihukile ngathi ukuthi makwami unashukela une hypertension kunjani njanyana njengoba sathi ukuthi vele ngathi le demographic noma laba labadzali ba affecta kakhulu ngedinyomula njani I think that would be the big question
kuthi nyomula kulokuhukeka kufuna ukuthi njengoba masho kufanele ukuthi urealize ukuthi sengihukekile angibekise nje ukuthi mhlambe unemndeni wakho niyacocisana uthi khanze wena so mhlambe nixoxa nje ukuthi impilo ngicube kanjani ukhanze wena so khanze socabanga ukuthi uyathi emsebenzini khona labe angakafaki imask ngiyabekisa incenye futhi ukhwehlelile incenye sengibabele lokugula losekukhona lo sekukwenda ukuthi lokulabe nixoxana lomndeni wakho awusakuva awusakwadi ukuthatha ngisho decision ukuthi senda kanjani kulokulabe sekukhuluma so kumcwalo ukuthi urealize ukuthi uyathi bese ngihukekile sengihuke nginako so that uto ukhona so okay my feelings akho bese anjani khathi uvukile ngoba dakhanza sibe bese sengifika kune kwesaba ngiko ngingasakhona ukumlalela mhlambe umfana nami ukuthi uyathi bekangitshela ukuthi uyathi ngiwile eminde khathi ungekho semsebenzini ngalesikhathi ke so realize ukuthi okay lokhu bekungivukile bese uyabala ukuthi okay naku lokungivukile naku lokunanga bese siyacala ke ufuna bese refocus ukuthi ke yini lokungani ngakuchintsha kuloku okay ukhwehlele lo labe ngisebenzana naye isinayo emsebenzini mina ke bengiti protectile ngigezile intandla ngibeki ngendile in social distancing yakhe ukuthi kutivikelana nami so kumcela ukuthi urealize and work on ukuthi udihuka andukha kanjani kule simo sekucabanga lo siyokulimala
sisahlelweni Embili Kanye Kanye isikhathi ke masodla amahle sitawuthi nje sigwinyamathe makafishane sifuna ke ukukhulumisana nesivakashi sethu lesilapha eNingizimu Afrika nguDr John Tibane ulusito kakhulu ikakhulu kade ke sigabeni sekusita ke labo lababaholi nekusita nje ama organization ukuthi atihlole atibuke ikakhulu kade makunetimo letitsite ukuthi sesiphuma njani ke kulesimo lesi nama individuals lafuna kumbe kuconza simo lekabhekene naso ngaleso sikhathi leso masibuya ke siyawumkhulumisa masodla amahle asichazele ikakhulu kunakule ke sekasitshele kona afikile la ukuthi mangabe sikule simo leso singema families singema heads of state sibanifana singema government leaders and so on and so forth how do we respond to a situation like this
With the change in technology, out-of-home digital media is designed to grab the attention of people who are always on the go. You can now watch your favorite show Usile Breakfast Show, and Inzaba at 7 on your favorite YouTube channel.
It's simple. You can stream these shows by following these quick, easy steps. Number 1, open YouTube. Number 2, search for Eswatini TV and click on Eswatini TV. Number 3, after you had entered on Eswatini TV, look for Tinzaba or KPS. And while you're at it, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell button to get notifications of our video uploads and streams. And lastly, enjoy the stream. Stay home and watch Eswatini TV. Stay safe.
And it's headed firmly in.
Goal! And it's gone straight in!
Just with the goalkeeper, he will be now. Head to goal!
Watch the Serie A Titans of Italy on Supersport, your world of champions.
Pay your TV license for being in possession of devices such as television sets, DVDs, VCRs, monitors, and more. You are reminded that payments of TV licenses is due on or before the 31st of December every year. 180 Amalangeni per year for individual or business viewership, 300 Amalangeni for television trading license, and 50 Amalangeni for other devices. You can pay for your TV license through MTN Mobile Money, Eswatini Mobile Imali, NetBank, and Eswatini Telecom. Visit us at the television license offices at the Madlenya House, Babane, or call this number 3434 1234. Pay yours every year.
Sibuyela maswahla amahle sehlelweni Embili Kanye Kanye sikhulumisa ke indzaba yana insindzaba echarts yemkhuhlane lokhona ke eveni sizama ke kubukisana indlela ukuthi maswahla amahle ngabe vele siyaconza ini lokuthi kwentekani ukuthi kusafuneka yini sente etini noma sicabange ngendlela besicabanga ngayo ke itolo senginaso ke sivakashi sami la ngisithembise wona ke maswati la ngu Dr John Tibane labanenge bayamati uke wafika nakhona ke live and lakhaya eSwatini atofundzisa labakhulumende labasemabhizinisini kubabuka lokuthi tingapane tingabanjwa njani sinana simo ke maswahla amahle lesibonakala ke sidinga lokuthi vele sibambisane ke imicabango kube ngileyo ke lehlukile I do have Dr John Tibane on the line with me or on the studio with me. He's joining us via a virtual platform. Dr Tibane, what a pleasure it is to have you on the show here today in Eswatini TV. We are so pleased to have you on the show, and welcome to the show Embili Kanye Kanye.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure for me. I'm so excited to be on air and connecting with you.
Of a Swati connection from your mother's side or from your father's side, if I remember very well. So you are speaking to family as things should be.
Well, I have a sentimental attachment to Eswatini. My father came from Mozambique and he met a Swazi girl, Lama Donsela, there in Komati Port, and they decided to make me, and I agreed. And here am I.
Oh, that's a pleasure. We are on the show Embili Kanye Kanye, Dr. Tibane, and we are discussing a subject that has been provoked by the current situation, COVID-19. You know, it has changed a lot of things, and there's this term that is being used generally now to say this is the new normal, and we are discussing this topic this issue under a topic that says mental resilience in a crisis. You know, should we look at what COVID-19 has presented as a crisis in the first place? And how would you define a crisis if it is a crisis for us?
Well, first of all, we must celebrate. I know it sounds funny because the crisis obviously causes pain, but we must want to be resilient. And thanks to Usus Figile Eswane or Mage Figile Eswane, I did not catch it well. We need to celebrate the crisis, because for me, a crisis, as a spiritual metaphor, it's like heaven's contraction to birth a new thing. So whatever heavens means to you, but imagine that the heavens is pregnant with something new that is going to serve us well here on earth. the womb of the heavens must contract to push that new thing to us. So whilst the contraction causes lots of pain, but we need to celebrate the outcome of these labor pains and embrace it for us. So a crisis is something that you really cannot control. Whilst we cannot control the crisis, the good news is that we can control our minds. We can control the way we respond to the crisis.
It sounds difficult, like you were saying, and a lot of people have found themselves in a state of anxiety, like Fikile has already attributed to. Particularly, let's start with the school-going age. In Eswatini, they haven't been to school, I think, since mid-March, up until now. Most of the grades haven't been to school, That creates a state of anxiety, a state of panic, How should the young ones respond to the situation? I know some of them may not know how to respond, but I think the parents need to be capacitated to help the younger ones to respond.
Yeah, maybe talking directly to the young people, we need to ask the question, why is there anxiety? And why is there a state of panic? Because people have been locked down. The reason why there is anxiety and panic is because of their perception of the lockdown, is because of their perception of the crisis. We often say that it's not what happens to you that really matters, but it's how you respond to it. But the way you respond to an event is determined by your perception of that event. So my suggestion is you can actually determine whether you can become anxious or become excited. That may sound a bit bizarre, but what really happens is that when an event happens, you begin to think about it. What you then need to do is for you to attach a positive meaning, a helpful meaning to the thoughts that you have about the event that has taken place. Here is an example. When the lockdown was announced in my country, South Africa, in March, that was horrible. But as I thought about it, I decided to attach a positive meaning to the lockdown. I said, thank God I've been wanting to go on a sabbatical leave so I can write my 11th book. And COVID-19 pandemic has come to give me the sabbatical leave. And guess what? Because of the meaning I attached to this seemingly difficult thing, now I have just finished writing a 400-page book.
Yeah. So, and I understand you have a way to
mining people's pain, but you know what? We are already in trouble, so we better get double for our trouble. We better make the trouble to work for us. We better make the difficulty to serve us.
I understand you have a way to help us understand and to define the term lockdown in itself, because I think if we don't, we may be traumatized by the term lockdown in itself. How do you define a lockdown, and how should we respond when governments announce a lockdown?
Yeah, that's a very interesting. I've really thought about it, and I've actually put it in the book. In my mind, when you are locked down, you are being slowed down. Now, you need to do 3 things if lockdown is to work for you. Number 1, you take cover. Why are you taking cover? It's because the virus is here to bombard you. And by the way, it's not just the coronavirus only. It could be a financial virus, a relationship virus, whatever negative thoughts we've been, whatever it is that we are going through, you take cover so that you are safe from it. But secondly, you recover, because you'll find that it has already wounded you. You need to recover some strength. You need to recover some energy. You need to heal a little bit. That's the purpose of the lockdown. But then the third thing, which we often miss a lot, and if we miss to do it, then we're in trouble. And that is you discover. You need to discover new ways of doing business, new approaches to life, new strategies. Why must you do that? Because you are going to a new normal. We are not bouncing back to the old normal. The old normal is not coming back. We are bouncing forward to a new normal. And that is why during the lockdown, you don't only take cover for safety, you don't only recover strength, but you must also discover new strategies, new ways of doing business, because we are not going to bring the strategies of yesterday into the present. Because if you do that, you also bring the drama with it. We must discover new ways of doing business. And if you do that, then you will take over when the storm is over. If you don't do the three things, you will die during the crisis. You will not survive. And remember, the intention really is we need to survive the crisis so we can thrive in the new normal. If you don't survive the crisis, forget about the new normal. So we must first survive, and the lockdown is meant for us to survive. But during the lockdown, you need to be doing some things because you are preparing for the new normal.
That's a very good one. Fikile, I need to get back to you, particularly with regards to the young ones. How do they even notice that they are affected? Most of them, my emotions are, but they have been affected. Their mental strength depleted. Dr. Tibane says you need to rejuvenate. How do you do that? Because probably my parents have been laid off and they are also confused as I am. What can they do to lift themselves up or to unhook, as you call it?
If umvana isikhathi esiningi awu realize ukuthi uyati sengine stress, seng frustrated, is the parent lefanele ukuthi abe nemali ama skills ekubona ukuthi umntwana am so nenkingi. Because you may see ukuthi lo mntwana, because unale fear ukuthi I might lose my mom noma my dad. The moment ubuye emsebentini uzama tonke indlela ukuthi akuhage, akucabuze, endele ukuthi I don't want to lose you mom, because sengivile ukuthi kunekwenteka na, but I don't want to lose you. If ungakhona ukureza ukuthi that's a reaction ukuthi lo mntwana is being stressed, utakhonza suyamluza ukuthi uyathi nami ngifrustrated ngibuye emsebentini angathi sikwendekene. So kumcwalo ukuthi understand what is happening ngomntwana lakho, bese umhlalisa phasi uyamkhulumisa about lama issues la khona ukuthi safe mangabe si safe la khaya uma sende 1 2 3.
Yeah, and I think there's also the issue of ngifuna kusebenza ligama kumbe lelitaba ngazothi kumbe ngiyalicinzetela i-resistance. Kunetimfo letishiwa bohulumende, letishiwa ngama mental health, ngama health stakeholders, your World Health Organization, our Ministry of Health, to say hlalane emakhaya, wash your hands, wear your mask, but ikhona the element yekungazothi kumbe letimfo letiya imposwa. I don't know how we can then try to channel members of the public to understand the dynamic of taking cover, like Dr. Tibane is putting it.
Ngiyabonga John, ngicabanga ukuthi nayiqala uhulumende nake ndayi lockdown beka sita thine, but inyalo sekumele thine stisite thine ukuze survive. The onus is no longer upon government, but it is on us. Kulo lokusho ke ngifikile ukuthi ba nangilo mntwana uthi uyabuya emsebenzini uyakujabulela, mhlambe nawe usenema concerns akho, kuhle lokuthi si engagane la khaya siyicoce lenzaba sibe on the same page, ngoba lama fears lo mntwana la nawo nami nginawo sekuthi awafanani. So kumcoka lokuthi le reality yenu ni discuss so that you are on the same page. Abantu labantwana osinawo anxious lokubahlupha kube nanengathi family time where you discuss these things so that you are on the same page, kuze noma senibuka indlela yekembili angathi uyakujabulela uthi hey mani lapha ungasasonzeli.
Yeah. And Dr. Tibane, let me come back to you. I don't know if this is my view or it is what is happening on the ground. The way we are attending to this situation as stakeholders, and I just want to make a particular reference to the issue of kids. We may think we are providing solutions to the kids, but we are merely reacting to things as they are because of what's happening, whereas there should be a way to attend to this issue. And my view is that when a situation comes, we need to be able to respond than to react in a certain way, you know. I don't know if there's a difference between these two terms that I'm using. Are we responding to the situation the way we should, or are we merely reacting to things because of the circumstances presented to us by COVID-19?
I think largely we are reacting more than responding. Now, to react, it means you take action because of the trouble that has taken place. But the action that you are taking is just focused on the now. You are not thinking about the consequences. So you are saying because there is this trouble, everybody must stay at home. Now, that's a reaction because the virus is there and it's a reality. And by the way, we must react. But I am saying in addition to reacting, we must also respond. Now, when you respond, as opposed to reacting, when you take an action with your eyes focused on the now, when you respond, you also take an action because of what has happened, but you are thinking about tomorrow. So here is an example. As governments, as community leaders, as public servants or whatever, I would have enjoyed or loved to see our governments, even across the world, when we say people must stay at home, which is a reaction and it must happen. But what about psychosocial support? What about psychosocial support? We should even use television media like this one to come and demonstrate how to establish or create a support group, for example. Because it's a reality, you know, it's very stressful just to be locked up. How do you do a debriefing? We expect these parents to support their kids, but they know nothing about debriefing sessions. We need then, as a responsive way now, let's train one another. We are going to be locked down. It's going to be tough. People are going to be depressed. They are going to be anxious and panicking all the time. This is how you debrief as a parent coming from home, meeting your kids who have been locked down there. How do you conduct a debrief as a family? Now, these are some of the things that we could be doing even beyond, not only in the family setup, but even in the workplace. We expect people to go to work when they have left their loved one who is sick. They have to work when someone has not come to work because he was coughing or he has tested positive or they've just buried somebody yesterday, etc. So it's a very stressful situation. Now, apart from giving them PPEs and masks and sanitization and all these things, which are also important on the physical health side, but there is also the mental health side. And there's got to be visible things that we are doing in order to support one another.
And I'm glad you bring up those issues. My view or my take is that many stakeholders, for instance, view this as a health issue only. And I'm glad we also started with the idea that the old situation or the old life is not coming back, which is why we have the new normal as it is, and we call it the new normal. But I don't know what leaders should be doing now to prepare themselves, particularly in the business community. I know that a lot of companies, for instance, are taking advice from the health sector to say, wash your hands, sanitize, wear your mask, social distancing, you know, and we are waiting for a situation where the number of cases as reported by government on a daily basis is going to decrease and things are going back to normal, you know. What is the role of leadership now that things are like this, as opposed to being diligent with taking advice and implementing it, you know, because that is good enough, but I don't think it will change the situation on the ground, because whether we like it or not, COVID is going to be here with us for a long time. What should business leaders in particular should be doing to make sure that we rise above the challenges posed by COVID-19 outside of the health issues?
Mm-hmm. Now, talking of leadership, let me just make a deal or put a principle on the table that really is supposed to be driving leadership. And the principle is, if there is no place called there, and the only place we have is the place called here, then leadership is unnecessary. Let me say that again. If there is no place called there, and the only place we have is the place called here, then leadership is unnecessary. In other words, what necessitates leadership is the existence of a place called there, which means that leaders shift their organizations, their families, they shift their businesses, they shift their countries or their nations from a place called here to a place called there. They shift their leaders, shift their people or their organizations or their nations from a place called here to a place called there. Now, in this context, can you still hear me? Yeah. In this context, the place called here is the crisis, and the place called there is the new normal, which therefore means that when you are leading during the time of crisis, you've got two main objectives. Objective number one is to get your people to survive the crisis. And objective number two is to get your people to thrive in the new normal. They must survive the crisis and then thrive in the new normal. I know we don't have enough time, but for leaders who can even deal with the issue of resetting, which we can talk about a little later, leaders, whilst we are in crisis, they must now discern and define the place called there, which is the new normal. Whilst in crisis, they must discern and define for themselves what is this place called the new normal. And by the way, it is not a geographical place, but rather a state of mind. It's a state of consciousness. So as Eswatini, for example, as a government, as a nation, we need to be asking a question. What kind of Eswatini we now want to see, having gone through this difficulty? What kind of an economy we want to see us operating on, having gone through this difficulty? What kind of families we want to see in the new normal? Define that place for you and then ask the next question. What will be my space in the new place? Because it is possible for you to get to the place but not have space. You are being squeezed out. If you're in business, other competitors, they squeeze you out. You are there, but you are not there. You don't have a space. You will not have a market share. You need to think about this thing whilst you are still this side. Also ask the question, what will be my race? Because you need to run a race there when you get there. There's going to be competition. And what kind of pace are you going to be running at? And of course, I hope you will have some grace for your race when you get there. Now, once you are there, I say you want to shift now, but once you are there, then you need to reset. And depending on whether we have the time or not, we can talk about the 7 elements that you must reset if you are to thrive in the new normal.
Just a quick one before we round up, Dr. Dibane. Let's just make an example again with leadership in the business community. What could characterize a leader that is reacting to the situation? I know some consequences as laid down by COVID-19 are inevitable, but I know that some could come as a way of leaders reacting to the situation than them responding to the situation in the business community in particular.
Yeah. An example is, you see, let's say you are sailing in a stormy weather, you are sailing in a stormy weather like we are. one of the things that you consider is the weight of the boat. Because if it is too heavy, maybe it's going to sink. So as the captain of this boat, you decide there are certain things I must get off the boat so that the boat can be lighter. Now, you don't recklessly just take things out of the boat so that you make it lighter, because that's just pure reaction. You need to think very carefully. What are the things that I must take off the boat? Because remember, when the storm is gone, if what you were taking off the boat was food, what you were taking off the boat were your warm clothes. Even when now it is calm, you still have a long way to be sailing in this ocean. Guess what? If it was food that you took off, now you are damn hungry, you are going to die of hunger. So you are sabotaging your future because of a current need. Similarly with organizations, I know others, they rush to retrench people. And sometimes it feels like a necessity, but think very carefully about it. Why don't you then call your staff, for example, and say, hey, Gunzima, however, I know I'm going to need you even tomorrow, even in the new normal. Let's debrief. Let's have a conversation. How do we solve this thing together? And we have seen other companies where employees themselves said, you know what, let's half our salaries. It's going to be tough, but let's half it so that we can keep alive until we get to the new normal. So in other words, there's contemplation and thinking about tomorrow. If you don't think about tomorrow, you are going to do some things now that you will regret in the future.
And my last question to you, Dr. Tibane, as we conclude, there are some lessons to be learned here, and I'm sure COVID-19 came as a huge surprise and a blow to all of us, our governments and everyone included, but I'm sure there are some lessons to be learned. We realized that COVID-19 came as a surprise, like I'm saying. We don't know what's coming in the next 5 years, for instance. What are some of the lessons we have learned in terms of preparedness, in terms of managing risk, in terms of responding to the situation?
I think one of the lessons is humility. We need to be humble. Even those that we have regarded as the best leaders, the best countries, the first world. The virus is no respecter of first world, it's no respecter of male or female, it's no respecter of academia or whatever. We need to be humble, but humility means that we must be willing to learn from one another. Sometimes the solutions are right there at home. You may be the head of the family, but your wife may be knowing something you don't know. You may be HOD, head of the department, but the clerk may be knowing something that you don't know. So we need to be willing to learn from one another and be humble. That's one of the most important lessons. But the second one, of course, is that sometimes when things are good, we really spend our monies as if there is no tomorrow. The very fact that we don't know how tomorrow will look like, maybe it's a lesson for us to say, you know what? The issue of saving, the issue of having what we call a business continuity plan is critical. The issue of having a crisis communications plan. Most organizations don't have a communication crisis plan. And when the crisis comes, they don't know how to communicate. And if we don't communicate properly, then we worsen the situation, we make it worse. For example, a hospital that does not have a good communications plan so we can communicate with the citizens. Because the citizens are confused, they become angry, and when they are angry, they come and become violent or hostile to the employees, and the employees are stressed even much more further because of the hostility of the citizens. But the reason why they are hostile is because they have no good communication. So these are the small little things that I myself has really observed, that these are the things we need to have in place. Should the crisis come, do we have a business continuity plan? Do we have reserves financially? Even as governments, we need to have the discipline of having reserves so that when times are like this, we are able to share the little money we have with our citizens, with our employees, etc., etc.
Dr. Tibane, thank you so much for your time, and I'm hoping that because COVID-19 is still here with us, we are going to be needing your insight. Thank you so much for your contribution on the show here today. Tonight here on Embili Kanye Kanye, and all the best with all your other endeavors.
No, thank you so much. And my biggest endeavor now is my book called Advanced Reset Blueprint, which shows how smart individuals and institutions can survive a crisis and thrive in a new normal. It will be out the third week of August, so we hope we can share some more thoughts with it. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you, Sisfigile. Thank you, Brajo. Thank you, Ngwane. Thank you, the producers and everybody else. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tibane. So siniketile kusitambitele umuntu lo njenga Dr. Tibane ngazuthi ungahlala naye nje phansi nicoce kahle atichaze, and I'm sure he has already given us some things that we can take home. And what are some of those issues for you, Dlamini Kunene?
Ngiyabonga John. Ngicabanga ukuthi lokuhleli kakhulu kimi ngulendzaba ye continuity plan, ukuthi whilst we are here, I should also be thinking of a place called there. Ukuthi ngidawufika kude onyala ngisurvive, nangifika kude ngidawufika kanjani njengenhlangano nemholi wenhlangano mina kungishiya nensayeya ukuthi how do we position ourselves to be relevant there, because we are going there.
Yeah.
And I am happy ukuthi when COVID struck, wena ungifakazi ukuthi we positioned ourselves to help our people to survive now. Umthandazo ke wethu ukuthi sifike nabo lembili.
Yeah.
And sifike sibe competitive and relevant.
Yeah. Angathi uthatha ini ifikile from my submissions Dr. Tibane. First he spoke to the young people in the country who we assume and we realize that are depressed because of what's happening, and most of your submissions were based on the things that they go through and how they can respond. But with regards to adults that are in business, that are teachers and so on and so forth, what are some of the things that you take home that we need to note, and we can be able to capacitate or to do some diagnosis around the issues that are going through as adults as well?
Lengikutholile John ngilokuthi asingasolo silwa ukuthi sifuna mine asibuke lokuthi sisidakala kanjani. For instance, emsebentini aswati ukuthi bani unelikhono kuphi ngamsita kanjani, sinakekelane lokumcoka ukuthi because sifuna ukuthi sakhele live lethu, sakhane nasemsebentini, sakhane nasemakhaya, asinakekelane. Akungathi nje ukuthi ngoba mina ngine frustration ne stress bese sengilwa nawe, asibuke ukuthi singenta kanjani ukuze sichubeke to our new normal.
Yeah. Asengibekise nje ngabo thishela nanabo banale thinking ade ukuthi bantwana basemuva njalo. Most teachers are used to producing students that give out A grades, but they are worried now, should they worry about that? And because ngendeka kungile issue lesikhuluma ngayo ukuthi you will find that they overwhelm themselves with these thoughts and end up leading themselves to a stressful situation. Should they worry? And if abangabi worried, abende njani? Because for the past 10 years I've been producing the best students in the country, and I don't see that happening now because labantwana bakafunzi for almost an entire year, and yet I am still expected to deliver results to my principal.
Kuba worried abachweke babe worried, but abati ukuthi kule worry yabo ngoba njengoba ngishite ekucaleni ukuthi nangabe usawukhekile ukhanza ukuthi awusakhona kasema decisions la kahle. Sinema goals ethu ukuthi sifuna ku produce abantwana labataba the best mhlawumbe kule sikolo sami, but nase sengiworried akhanza ukuthi angisamniketi le information yonke ngekufanele simnikete ngayo lo mfana. Ngiko ukuthi kufanele urealize ukuthi uyathinyalo say I'm too worried mine, bese sengiyabuya ngiyehla ngiyarefocus ukuthi ngifuna ngende 1 2 3 bese ngiyabuka ukuthi ngikhonile ngikukwenda kahle kuze kusinalo mfana atothola the best lekufuna kumniketa yona.
Yeah. kunenzaba sike sayixoxa nje Dlamini kunene sisobabili lesibonisana njengebadali kunengakhulu lenzaba yalo ukuthi ingathi ikakhulu kahle abamfana labancane abangabi nedincingo because bayathi abuse they end up doing things that you as a parent don't acknowledge noma appreciate that they should do on the phone. But I'm just trying to think ukuthi during this period of COVID-19 some of the issues langa let's say anxiety is them not being able to meet their peers, you know, for a period of 4 consecutive months maybe now they haven't been able to see or to talk to their friends, you know. Angathi lenza bayala ama gadgets ukuthi singayenda in advocacy work nyalo ukuthi badali bayi reconsider as a means to probably respond, like Dr. Tibane was saying, to respond to what is happening, because masithi manje abangabe nedincingo because itolo bekusingabonakala kakhulu lesidingo. But we need to bridge the gap for these young people in terms of communicating and in terms of the psychosocial support that Dr. Tibane mentioned.
Ngiyabonga John, kuhlupha nje ngoba vele ungimele ngenhla uthi angivumele wena. Kodwa ke ngicabanga silokunye le iCovid lesifundise kona ukuthi lolucingo alisiko lokube sicabanga silingiko idolo. Ngoba lokwendekile nyalo incumbi yebantwana labe bafundza bokhanza sinalabo thishela bathumela ema notes noma emibuzo noma ema past exam papers kule dincingo. Nangabe lo mntwana ede kungene kulolwami vele nalolwami sekumele alibuke. So lokho kwasiveta sizathu sekucala. Sesibili ke Jodi ngiso sona lesekuchumana noma kwathi usibangani bakhe bakuphi kwentekani. Lokho kungayinyusa ianxiety. Kumende lo mntwana abese sohlala unyukubele noma sowumunyu ngoba ngende abofuna kwathi usibangani bakhe kuhamba njani noma ufuna kuyobahlola noma ufuna kufa nje kusitindo dihamba kanjani. So although singeke prescribe ukuthi badala bathengele abantwana dincingo ngoba phela naleti imali John dinyamalele, kodwa singathi akubukiswane indlela yokuthi lo mntwana anga accessa njani angaba nendlela lenjani ecocisana nebahlobo bakhe ngendlela leguidiwe kahle kulesikhathi lesi, so that naye lokho kutawumenta ngoba naye uyadinga kuva umufo walabangangaye kulesikhathi lesi.
Yeah, kungama affect imvelo umntwana afikile ukuthi sekuphele nje nge 4 months angakhulumi nebangani bakhe. Kukhona into lokungakwenda emotionally or even psychologically.
Kakhulu kuyamlimata kakhulu sikhulume nge-social distancing. To me i-social distancing akusiyo le physical distancing ukuthi ngihleti la na babengwane ngihleti lapha, that's the physical distancing. I-social distancing lokuthi ngingakhoni ku-communicator nalabangani bami naleti hlobo tami letinye kuva ukuthi uyathi wena uphila njani, yini lengayifunza kuwe ukuthi nami into okuchubeka ngiphila. So leti incingo utiyamsita lo mfana ukuthi akhone lokuchumana nalabangani bakhe.
Yeah, awuphinze lokho amatemu bokuhlukanisa kahle ukuthi sikubita nge-social distancing thina lokho ukuthi manje bathi ungeme eceleni kwafikile kanti kufuna ukuthi ngabe sikubita ngani
nge-social le physical distancing lokuthi ngoba si physical ukuthi mina ngila ngwane ulapha
lembala,
kanti le social ngilokuthi sichumana kanjani nalabanye bami. So asiyivalele social distancing ngalokho siyachumana.
Yeah, asibuyele komhlabuhlangene asilungisele lenkinga ngoba besithi mangibuka ngiyabona ukuthi bekathini, kodwa I think ukubeka kahle lokuthi akungabe sephela sakhona ukuchumana sekuba ne social distance. Bona mbambamba bekukhulunywa ngalo ukuthi ningasonzelani kakhulu physically, kanti sekugcina sekubangana le thinking ade ukuthi sibe naleto. But how should a child respond? Uyambona lo mfana ukuthi o stressed kumbe umntali nanawe njengoba sowukhona la, yini lekungafuna ukuthi akwende to try and overcome lama thoughts nalama emotions lokhanza ukuthi amcinzetela
kumcwalo ukuthi lo mfana ngoba lo mncane kakhulu nje ukuthi akakhona ukurealize ukuthi uyathi nginaleti inkinga ama thoughts ukuthi ayangenganga. Lo mntali akakhona ukubona ukuthi uyathi unganywe ngilama thoughts. Nasakhula khuleke sekabona cocisanani ukuthi singenda kanjani kulama thoughts lawa kuze ukuthi siwakhweshise la mcondweni ukuthi impilo iyachubeka. Nalokuthi ke ngive ukuthi okay umngani wami isonto uphila njani ekhaya. Utangisita ukuthi uyathi uthi okay ekseni uvuka apheke adle bese uhlala phansi encwadzini takhe. Mina ngihlala kusengibukele indzaba ukuthi uyathi ngabe namhla sesithini statistics ngabe sesithini statistics kuyangisida indlo kupheka ubuka le statistics kanzi nangichubeka ngenta impilo ichubeka ngiyakhona ukuchubeka ngiphile.
Yeah. Dlamini kunene siyagocoda ngicabanga ukuthi kuyafuna ukuthi sicinzetele tingqondweni temaswati lokuthi masithi new normal esisho ukuthini. I don't know if you would be in a position to summarize some of the things Dr. Tibane mentioned with regards to understanding what the new normal means.
Ngiyabonga John, sengigocoda ngicela kucala ngekuthi kimi i-new normal ithi asisinaswabuka lama statistics ukuthi there are so many cases. Asiwabuke phela nema cases ema recoveries. Sivamse kube sesibuka kakhulu limatwa ngilomkhuhlane but labanye baya recover. Leyo ngilenye yetindlela lengenda le stress isuke. So ke siphinze futhi sibuke indzaba la ishito dokotela Tibane yema support groups. Ukuthi nasikhuluma nge-new normal asikwakhe lama groups la ngathi khona useyinda ngifuna lusito ngiyathi ukuthi ngidoya kubobani nginabo bantu ihlobo nebangani bami ngelwimi lwebafana John Abraham. Kwesithathu ngilendzaba yema debriefing meetings. Lokubuketa usuku luhambe njani kungaba kusemsebentini kungaba sekhaya ukuthi kube ne debrief kungaba semsebentini esikolweni kungaba semsebentini kumbe la angibekise nje icrew lela iyabuthe imadoda kuhamba njani singathi nakelela kanjani sithi phephisa kanjani uthi ke dokotela akube khona lokwe crisis communication. So mhlambe kungaba kucizela lokho nekuthi ke asingacabangi ukuthi siyobuyela tindo tiyobuyela tibe njengalokho betinjalo. Lokho sekuntshintshile asale silungisa lengcondo yethu imukele lo ntshintsho lo lwenteka konyalo bese ilungiselela ukuthi sitawuphila njani nalo ntshintsho lo selondekile.
Yeah. Kumbe emisebenzini leminyenti uhulumende uvulile wathi buyelani majabu not okufuna siuvule baqashi babheke ukuthi ti70 tiqhubeke tidelive. Dr. Tibane mentioned that ngendeka ulamsebenzini ubuya kuyongcwaba sihlobo sakho makwakho uyagula uyesaba unalo mkhuhlane nato tonke leto tinfo leto. What should employers do and employees do collaboratively to make sure ukuthi while we are meant to deliver and still be productive but still take care of the mental and emotional stresses that are provided by this situation?
Ngiko lokuthi kufuna sente lama debriefing sicocisane lamsebentini ngaletimvo letendekile ngoba the more ngikhuluma ngokuthi naku lokwentekile kimi lokungiphatha kabi lokungihethako kuyakhona ukuthi kuyathululeka kuyagiyeka kunalokuthi ngipheke ukugungutha ngingedvane the case ngugungutha ngedvane angikhona ukuthola isolution instead ngiyacinzeteleka more. So kumcwala ukuthi sisemsebentini sikwadi ukukhulumisana khuluma nebaphathi bakho noma nebangani bakho ukuthi singenda kanjani kuze ukuthi ngingastresseki ngilokuthi ngiyagulelwa ekhaya noma sengifele.
Yeah. Fikile siyabonga kakhulu thatha wethu kuba nathi ke ehlelweni Dlamini kunene sibongela Nkosi kuba nathi ke ehlelweni and also special thanks to Dr. Tibane in the Republic of South Africa for participating in this program. The program is going to be repeated tomorrow on Eswatini TV at 9 a.m. in the morning, but also do go to our YouTube channel and see this interview or this discussion if you have missed a part of it. Thank you so much once again for joining us and may God bless us all. Until we meet again, take care.